profitable to own a taxi company. If you can get $800 a week from a driver, yet that driver working for a co-op can get by on an expense of $200 or $250 a week.
Oh, absolutely, you're right.
And the difference is in the profit.
Yeah, it's a spectacularly profitable business to own from the top. Metro is owned by a couple individuals here, and then Yellow Cab, of course, is owned by Veolia, a French corporation.
It's 8:45. I'm Joel Edelstein. I'm talking with Hassan, who is a driver and a future member of the Mile High Cab Co-op. Hopefully it will get off the ground. And Mile High's attorney, Tom Russell. If you'd like to join our conversation, we are at 303-442-4242. Again, that number, 303-442-4242. Now, Judge Gomez said that the two criteria that the PUC say are necessary to satisfy, they've been satisfied. There's no mention by the PUC, and by the way, a PUC spokesperson has just said that the PUC has no established number of cabs that the metro area can support. This is something from Judge Gomez. And Judge Gomez has introduced into his opinion the idea that Mile High is not differentiating itself sufficiently from the existing cab companies, even though the PUC has never said anything about differentiating. And you are saying that Mile High will differentiate itself by having lower fares. It doesn't add up.
It didn't add up for me, Joel. My experience with consumers is if the simple fact that it costs 25 cents less per mile is adequate differentiation, that plus the other items that I mentioned, that you wouldn't pay extra for extra friends in the cab and you wouldn't pay for extra groceries. If you're a senior citizen coming back from the grocery store with a friend of hers, they wouldn't pay for those extra grocery bags. I think that's adequate differentiation. But as you mentioned, too, there's a due process issue that I identify. We held an 11-day hearing in front of our competitors, many, many lawyers on the other side, and there was no mention of a differentiation criterion. And so that was a complete, absolute surprise to me when I read the opinion.
Hassan, I know the two of you were kind of glancing at each other when I mentioned this and kind of laughing a bit.
Yeah, just as a thing, what you have to know that always competition is good for the consumer. There is no point of saying by competing you cannot benefit of the population who just live around that counties. So if you just at this time, if you say you live in a Golden and you call a cab, so how long is it going to take for one consumer to get a cab on a time? Maybe 25, 30. So by bringing a Mile High on the floor, we can just more availability can be more on the floor for any consumer who is just using a taxi as a transition system or transportation system.
I'd like to bring into, because I think that many people have the impression that taxis, we're talking about what people with more incomes or they're on an expense account can use, and that's what this is really about. It's for upper income people that can afford taxi rides. But I asked Eric Morris, who is a researcher at the UCLA Institute of Transportation Studies, about low-income people and taxis. And I'd like to bring you for a minute what his comments were.
It's very surprising. One would think the taxi service is expensive, which it is, and therefore it would be the province of the wealthy. And wealthy people do take a lot of cab rides, particularly in New York. But you'd be surprised how many low-income people take cab rides. And they're not doing it for every single one of their trips. There's no way they could afford it. They're going to be using public transportation a lot. But every once in a while, there's going to be a trip that's absolutely necessary to have a car. You're going to Costco, or you're going to IKEA, you're going to have a lot to bring home, or you're doing your grocery shopping, or you have to bring passengers along in your car. And for those reasons, we do see a lot of taxi ridership among low-income people, and it's an important lifeline to them for providing necessary transportation. And there are other groups as well who really can rely on taxi transportation, which are disabled people, for example, the blind who are unable to drive, and also elderly people frequently rely on taxis after it becomes impossible for them to drive themselves. And another thing that I should point out is I understand the new taxi company is talking about providing service in areas of the city that are currently underserved. Low-income neighborhoods have a lot of trouble attracting cab service for a couple of reasons. Number one, drivers are often afraid of taking passengers to low-income areas, so they'll refuse fares to those areas, even though they're not supposed to. And then the other issue is that it's going to be less easy for the taxi driver to find a fare coming back from a low-income neighborhood a lot of the time, so that's another disincentive to making those trips. So to the extent that the new company can provide better service to low-income areas, I think it would definitely benefit lower-income people.